up, you guys? It's your girl Ubuhlebenkosi, and it's True Crime Tuesday. Before we get started with today's video, kindly subscribe to my channel, press that like button, and comment down below other true crime cases that you want me to cover. I cannot believe that it's already November, and unfortunately this is going to be my last video until after my exams, which is like the end of November, early December. So I decided to make a bit of a long true crime story to compensate, because I'll be missing like the whole month and a bit of December. So I'm so sorry guys that I won't be posting, but I need to focus on the books. So yeah, apologies for any background noise. I am home in the afternoon, everyone is back home, so it might be a bit of noise. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, let's get started with today's true crime case. Today's true crime case is going to be about one of South Africa's most notorious serial killers, and his name was Cedric Maake. Not much is known about his childhood, but from what we do know, Cedric Maake was born on the 10th of September in 1963 in Limpopo. There's one moment in his life that he described as a defining moment. This was when he was 12 years old and had to undergo traditional initiation, and this was when he was put into the bushes for 3 months without any food or water. These coming of ages ceremonies differ from tribe to tribe, but they are often performed for boys to prove their manhood by surviving alone in the bushes. Cedric's father passed away when he was in grade 10, and this is when he dropped out of school to help take care of his family. He then moved to Johannesburg to work as a plumber for himself. He had a wife and 4 children in Limpopo, and he also had a girlfriend in Johannesburg. And at 33 years old, he was living in La Rochelle, Johannesburg, and this was when his life of crime seemingly began. He began his crime spree in April of 1996, and at first the SAPS Brixton Murder and Robbery Unit did not link these crimes together, thinking that it was the work of 2 separate serial killers due to the difference of patterns. So they created 2 different criminal profiles. The first one was the Wemmer Pan murderer, and the second was the hammer murderer. Side note, in this true crime case, I'll be covering if not all of the cases that Cedric Maake was involved in, so it's going to be kind of long, and I'm doing this because it's going to help you get insight into why he was one of our most notorious serial killers and why he's so different. On the 28th of December 1996, Antonio Avonto was working in Hill Gardens Cafe in High Street in Rosettenville. Cedric entered the cafe without warning and started beating Antonio with a hammer, and he stole 400 rand from the cash register and he fled. Luckily, Antonio survived. And this was the beginning of the Hammer series. He struck again on the 6th of January 1997. Magan Kanji was a tailor who owned his own shop in Madison Street in Jeppe. And around 10 a.m., Maake entered the store, telling Kanji that he was a plumber and that he needed second-hand trousers to do his work. Kanji gave Maake trousers in his size, and Maake tried them on. He handed them back to Kanji, and as Kanji was bagging his purchase, Maake suddenly struck Kanji in the eye with a shifting spanner. The man fell to the ground, and Maake continued to strike him. The old man regained consciousness in the hospital and survived, but he never fully recovered from the head injuries sustained in Maake's attack. However, Maake got away with 5 trousers. 2 days later, Maake entered Terminus Butchery in Bezuidenhout Avenue in Troyville. He bludgeoned Kenny Chan with a hammer and stole cash from the till, and luckily Kenny Chan survived. On the 17th of January, Maake struck again in another tailor shop, this time Villa Brothers in Rocky Street, Doomfontein. 56-year-old Kantilal Luchman was behind the counter when Maake entered and asked for alterations for 2 of his trousers, which is also part of the trousers that he stole at his previous attack. He waited for Mr. Luchman to finish with the alterations. Then after that, he pointed to shoes that he said that he wanted to purchase on lay-by. He gave Kantilal the deposit for the shoes, and he wrote the deposit slip under the name Patrick Mukwena of Walnut Street, Bedford View on the slip. Maake then pulled out a hammer from his bag and, get this, told Mr. Luchman that his hammer was broken and loose and that he needed it to be repaired. So Kantilal directed him to a nearby hardware store. Maake left and got his hammer repaired, which he probably broke on his attack on Kenny Chan. He went back to Villa Brothers, the tailor shop, and then said that he now wanted to purchase underwear there. When Kantil turned to get to the shelf with the underwear, Maake attacked him with the same hammer that he had just repaired. He stole his wallet and left the hammer behind, and Kantilal sustained several skull fractures and a clot on the brain, but he survived. I will kill someone. On the 22nd of January, Maake entered Ubuhle's shop in Bree Street, Newtown. He acted like a customer, and when the time was right, he attacked him with a hammer, stole Ubuhle's wallet and 600 rand, but thankfully Ubuhle survived this attack. The very next day, Maake walked into a shop in Veilig, downtown Johannesburg, where Ansuklal Patel was alone in the shop and was bludgeoned with a hammer. He was taken to hospital but died the next day, and this means Maake had claimed his first life. In February of 1997, Hassan Ahmed was working at Johannesburg Cash and Carry in Fort Spoke, where Maake entered the store, attacked him with a hammer, and fled with 200 rand, and luckily Hassan survived this attack. 26th of February, David Sutka was attacked with a hammer in a pawn shop on Rocky Street in Yeoville. His wallet and credit cards were stolen, but he survived this attack as well. The next day, Maake and another man entered Shoe City Repairs in Veilig Street, Johannesburg, where Maake beat 63-year-old Goppel with a hammer, stole his wallet, and luckily Goppel survived but had brain damage and couldn't remember anything from the incident. And this was the first time Maake was seen working with another person, which is actually very weird for a serial killer or like any type of criminal to work with someone else. A whole month had passed before Maake would attack again, and this time he attacked at a butchery in Vredehop, and Law survived a vicious attack with a hammer, with Maake stealing 900 rand. Again, another month would pass until the 22nd of April, where Maake would walk into Jails Wholesalers on Commissioner Street in Johannesburg, and he would ask Yogi Deta if he could mend his shoe, and then suddenly attacked him with a hammer. Yogi fought back, and Maake fled the shop, leaving the bag of clothes that he had with him and the shoe that he intended to mend. Oddly, Yogi would later sell the clothing and shoes before they would be able to be collected as evidence. The incidents that I just mentioned all form part of the hammer series that Maake committed. Now, back then, the SAPS computers did not have the system that could link modus operandis, meaning no connection was made with all of these cases. And after his last attack, Maake changed his modus operandi to attack people in Wemapan, specifically couples. Wemapan is a well-known lake and recreational area in the south of Johannesburg, and it is an ideal spot for couples to hang out and just chill and spend some quality time together, and Maake seemed to know that. It was on the 27th of April 1997, Moses began his Wemmer Pan series, also simultaneously starting his second MO or modus operandi. Maake was prowling Wemapan when he came across Elijah Hlachwayo and Eunice Nkosiphansi. The couple was spending time in Elijah's old Toyota Cressida parked overlooking the lake when, seemingly unprovoked, Maake shot Elijah in the back. He stole his wallet and firearm, then forced Eunice to a nearby mine dump where he shot and killed her too. When the scene was uncovered, they could not determine whether Eunice was raped or not. Unfortunately, when the police went to Elijah's house to relay this really sad news, the door was opened by his wife, meaning not only did they have to relate to her that her husband had been murdered, but he was murdered while with another woman. Maake wandered from the scene and he came across an now unidentified victim whom he raped and bludgeoned to death. Cedric Maake was now a rapist and serial killer. And then, seemingly unprovoked, he then changed his modus operandi again. And this time he started targeting taxi drivers. On the 25th of May 1997, Cedric Maake boarded a taxi and stayed on until he was the last passenger. He directed the driver, whose name was Sipho Ndima, to the place where he wanted to be dropped off. Once Sipho pulled over, Maake got off, went around the car, and through the driver's window, he held a gun to Sipho's head and robbed him of 300 rand. He then proceeded to shoot him several times, but thankfully Sipho survived this attack. The last time Maake was seen attacking a taxi driver was in June of that same year, where he robbed Michael Mkhize of his watch, shoes, and wallet. He shot him, but he luckily survived. He briefly returned to his Wemmer Pan series with Ralph Ngwenya and Christina Mashugo, who was sitting on the grass in Wemapan. Maake approached them and shot Ralph twice in the head, where he died on the scene, and Christina's body was discovered raped and shot to death a few meters away. After those last 2 murders in Wemapan, Maake changed his modus operandi again, which involved shooting random people. Side note, I'm sure a lot of you guys could agree that the scariest type of killers are people who kill at random, because I mean, I'm not saying it's good to kill, but like they don't have like a specific target. Like if they want to kill someone close to them, or they have like a certain type. Now, when someone is just like, I'm just trying to kill people, I think we're all at risk, you know what I mean? From his robbery, Maake had accumulated 3 firearms. On the 16th of June, Dora Dladla was jogging along the Soweto highway near Crown Mines, where she came across Maake, who raped and killed her. Sonti Mahokoni was walking with 2 female friends near Highveld Technical College near Wemapan, where Maake approached all 3 of them and started a conversation. Then suddenly pulled out a gun and shot Sonti. 2 women fled and Maake stole Sonti's ID book, 20 rand, and his shoes. Maake again returned to the Wemmer Pan series, this time with Jerry Naidu and his girlfriend Charlotte Ndlovu. Maake went over to Jerry's car and asked for assistance with his phone. And when Jerry rolled down the window, Maake immediately shot him in the stomach and fatally wounded him. He stole Jerry's wallet and then dragged hysterical Charlotte out of the car and forced her to walk with him, and then robbed her of her leather jacket, spectacles, and watch. He instructed Charlotte to flag down a taxi, and once it stopped, she managed to get in the taxi, shut the door in his face, and scream for the driver to drive, which luckily that he did. It's so weird. Like, what was he gonna do? Was he gonna go with her? Anyway, the incomplete nature of this crime obviously irritated Maake, because the very next day he came across couple Moses Ramatlotla and Dorcas Makatani at Wemapan. He shot Moses twice in the back, killing him instantly. He stole Moses' wallet and forced Dorcas to walk with him to a nearby tree cover. As they were walking, they passed a random man, and then Maake said to Dorcas that this man was his partner. Presumably to like scare her to not ask for help, but chances are he didn't even know this man. He forced Dorcas to undress and he raped her twice. He then gave her money for taxi to get home and tried to arrange a date with her. Even worse, as she was walking away, he asked her if she was going to attend her boyfriend's funeral. After this murder, the Wemapan series was coordinated into one investigation and placed under the Brixton Murder and Robbery Unit. And this investigation was headed by Captain Piet Bielefeld, who was known as South Africa's top cop. In his SAPS career that spanned over 40 years, where he investigated some of the most high-profile cases and had a 99% solve rate, he was definitely the man for the job. He unfortunately passed away in 2017, but during Maake's time, he was at his prime. Bielefeld determined the time that most couples went to Wemapan was on weekends, and this was simultaneously the times that most of the attacks happened, so Maake obviously knew that couples would be there then. 4 days after sending Dorcas away, Maake was back at Wemapan, this time for Stanley Kolube and Emily Madiba, who parked in their car when Maake came, approached them, and held them at gunpoint. He then forced them to get out of their vehicle and did something insane. He forced them to have sex while he was watching. He stole Stanley's wallet and then had the couple walk with him to a nearby tree cover. Stanley made a run for it and luckily he got away, but Maake raped Emily and then shot her before stealing her jacket and watch, but thankfully Emily survived. On the 18th of July 1997, Maake went and killed 5 people in 3 different incidents using 2 different MOs. His first 2 victims was Samuel Molemo and Christine Lekwane, who were walking along Mainreef Road in Langlaagte when Maake approached them with a gun and demanded Samuel's wallet, and he refused. Maake shot him 3 times in the head. Maake shot Christine in the knee so that she couldn't run, and he dragged her to a bush and raped her twice before fleeing. He then went to Claremont, where he came across David Du Plessis and Sarah Lingwapane, whom he shot David and raped and killed Sarah, and left with David's shoes as well. Also in Claremont, young couple Martin Stander, who was 19, and Leilani van Wyk, who was 15 years old, had stopped to smoke a cigarette when Maake walked straight up to Martin and shot him in the head. He raped Leilani and killed her too, and then stole Martin's clothing. And just 1 week after his insane spree, I guess he decided to take a break, he saw Daniel Mutiotsi and Doris Mankapele walking on Boyson's Reserve Road. And this time, Maake had a partner. Both men demanded money from the couple, and when none of them were forthcoming, they assaulted Heniel and raped Doris. Maake beat Doris to death and then proceeded to steal trousers and shoes. And then after that, he went back to his Hammer series in August of 1997. 64-year-old Luvio Vuitton was working in his shop, which was called Luvio's Shoe Repairs in Main Street, Jeppe, when Maake entered and dropped his shoe off for repairs. He returned the next day for collection and also inquired about some belts that were on sale. Luvio passed him a belt and Maake tried it on, and then out of nowhere pulled out a hammer and hit Luvio in the face. When Luvio woke up, Maake was gone and he had left his bag behind as well as the hammer. For some odd reason, Luvio sold the items that were in the bag, which were shoe polish, an empty wallet, and shoes, before evidence could be collected. On the 16th of August, Nat Verlaal Angaran opened SK Tailors in Turffontein. The last thing he remembered was switching on the iron to press a pair of trousers when Maake attacked him with a hammer from behind, stole his wallet, and luckily he survived. On the 19th of August, a cleaner arrived at Correlio stores in Bertram's Road to find Isop Hassan in a pool of blood on the floor. It turns out Maake had attacked him with a hammer at around 10:30 that morning. He survived the incident but had no memory. The morning of the 29th of August, Kanu Parbu opened KB Tailors on Rocky Street in Yeovil, where Maake attacked him with a hammer and stole his wallet, and unfortunately, Kanu died in hospital a while later. On the 14th of September at SA Wholesalers on Pine Avenue in Fortsburg, Abdul Karim was attacked with a hammer but luckily survived. Unfortunately, his wallet was stolen though. 5 days later, 75-year-old Harajivan Daya left Ndaya Tailors in Crown Road, Fortsburg, to go to the toilet. When he returned, he was attacked from behind with a hammer, where his wallet and a bag of clothing was stolen. Thankfully, he survived. On the 4th of October, Maake killed Mohammed Ibrahim, who was at work at Badat's store in La Rochelle. Mohammed had sustained severe head and neck injuries, and he was found that day by a customer, and cash had been stolen from the cash register. 10 days later, Maake killed Jacinto Serrano in Good Hope Cafe in Turffontein by beating him to death after stealing money from Jacinto. On the 18th of September, Eduardo Augusto was approached by Maake in Soweto Wholesalers in Opir Road in Boysons, where he asked for a plastic bag, and when the man went to go get one for him, Maake struck him on the head with a hammer. Eduardo survived and Maake stole the entire cash register, which had 500 rand, Eduardo's ID, 39 rand from Eduardo's pocket. Mahesh was approached by Maake and a female accomplice at Jay's tailor shop, where the pair said they wanted to buy underwear. And then they proceeded to attack Mahesh with a hammer and stole 500 rand before fleeing. Mahesh luckily survived. On the 4th of November, Anil Metherson dropped him off outside his shop in Protea Glen at 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. one of the employees arrived at work to find that it had been locked. Inside, she could see Anil's body laying on the ground in a pool of blood. A security guard kicked open the door, but unfortunately, Anil had died on the scene after Maake beat him with a hammer early that morning after coming to fetch his pants, which he had dropped off the previous day. At this time, Captain Pete Bielefeld, who was assigned on the Wemmer Pan series, was now assigned on another high-profile series. The Asian community were pissed at the heightened attack at tailor and shoe repair shops. And as they talked about the incidents, they had all determined that the perpetrator was one person. And this is why the case was handed to Captain Pete Bielefeld. At this time, the Hammer and Wemapan series were not linked, and Bielefeld came up with a plan to put surveillance on the different stores, but unfortunately the community unrest had caused them to go to the media with all the info. which meant now Maake knew that they were looking for him, so he decided to abandon the Hammer series. Knowing his previous MOs were now dangerous for him and a possibility for him to get caught, he switched to his last and final MO, which was home invasions. Jose Carries was stabbed to death by Maake in his house in Regent Park, where Maake stole his TV, video recorder, wallet, pair of shoes, and his keys. On the 7th of November, Arthur McIntyre was beaten with a hammer in his home in South Hills, where Maake stole his video machine, a portable radio, jewelry, clothes, and a .38 caliber revolver. Bielefeld then called off his surveillance, and that led Maake to go back to his Hammer series. Same day he had killed Arthur, he entered Victoria Fashions in Rosettenville and attacked Chinese couple Sean Sao and Shai Sao. With the hammer, then proceeded to steal the cash and run. Unfortunately, Sean died in hospital, but Shai survived this attack. Maake then killed Thaco Ranchard in Boston, Taylor's, and then proceeded to change his MOs again. The 28th of November, Jared Lavu was riding his bicycle in Wemapan, and Maake shot him in the back, killing him, and then proceeded to steal his bike, which he later sold. On the 12th of December, Meaning Kabine and Tandindaba were in the shelter which they had built in Blue Dam, Homestead Park, when Maake approached the pair pretending to be a police officer, saying that he was looking for stolen belongings, and then he proceeded to search their belongings. He instructed them to follow him to his car, where he shot and killed both Tandy and Mimi, after also raping Tandy. Later that day, Maake broke into the home of Cyril Slattery and Turfontein, whom he bludgeoned to death with the hammer and stole his television set. 2 days later, Enoch Ngoma and Deliwe Ngokela walking through the field in Moffatview, and they were attacked by Maake, where he forced them to have sex with each other while he watched, fired warning shots to scare them. He then raped Deliwe and released her when she promised not to identify him after robbing Enoch of his clothes, watch, and left him unharmed. On the 19th of September, Maake came across Bongani Gama and Ndomfuti Ngumalo in Pioneer Park, where he immediately shot Bongani in the back, killing him. And he abducted Ndomfuti and took her to Wemapan, where he raped her twice. He forced her to walk with him, and then they came across two men, one of which his name was Richard Febana, whom he shot and stole his shoes, but he luckily survived. Then Maake took Ndomfuti to Faraday Station, where he raped her again and released her, and told her he was lucky that he never killed her. Captain Pete Bielefeld's method with all of these cases was the fact that he never went to a scene once. He would go back over and over again just to check if there was nothing that had been left. And this method luckily worked for him, because on one of his trips back to Wemapan, he found a tissue, which would now provide a DNA profile. Woman who had been raped by him said he was small in stature but very strong and aggressive. He would chase women while swearing at them in Afrikaans, and bragged to his victims about his other murders. Bielefeld also had tried to set up a trap with one of his female police officers one weekend at Wemmer when they pretended to be a couple. They waited for around 8 hours, and when it got too late, Pete got scared for his colleagues' safety, so he left. And as they were driving away, they got a radio call saying that a man had been creeping behind them, but when the engine started, he fled into the woods. In December, Bielefeld finally got his break when he received a call from a member of the public reporting a man was acting suspiciously at some hotel. They said that he never slept there, nor did he eat there, but he was always around, and he wasn't even like a street vendor there. The description of this man matched exactly the description of the Wemapan series perpetrator, which is distinctively him wearing a glove. He was a small, thin man, neatly clad in green trousers and a grey jersey with a faded printed face on it. The caller also said that they thought the man was in a relationship with a woman who lived in the hotel, and her name was Angelina Kapane. On December the 23rd of 1997, Bielefeld and his team set up surveillance on Angelina, and at 11 a.m. she got into a taxi and traveled towards JP. She got out and waited at the corner when a man in green trousers and a grey jersey came walking towards her. Immediately, Cedric Maake was detained and put into police custody, and he refused to say a word. He had a single bullet cartridge in his pocket. A journalist later described him as a fresh-faced young man someone wouldn't hesitate to employ if he came knocking at your door on the weekend. Blood was drawn from Maake, and the forensic labs worked through Christmas. And their work was not in vain, because once they compared the DNAs, it was a match. Maake was their man. Maake was not taking his incarceration well. Well, if you want to be in jail, don't do jail things. As he yelled and threw feces at the guard, and Bihlefeld ran out to calm him down and even offered him a cigarette. And then Maake started screaming back at him that he doesn't smoke cigarettes. And anyway, he took the cigarette instead, put it behind his ear, took it out, and then started crumbling it to pieces. For 3 hours, he screamed at Bihlefeld for seemingly no reason, but finally Bihlefeld discovered he had a special connection with his mom, so he used that to calm him down by promising a visit to his mother. Next day, Bihlefeld confronted Maake with the DNA evidence, where Maake proceeded to smile and admit to being the Wemapan murderer, and then took them to point out the scenes of his crimes. He said that most of the items he stole, he sent and took to his mother who lived in Limpopo. So Bihlefeld took Maake to Limpopo to retrieve the items and also to uphold his promise for the visit. During the visit, Bihlefeld discovered that Maake's mom was one of 2 wives that Maake's father had had. And after he died, him and his mother had become second-class citizens because the inheritance from the father's death went to the second wife and her children. And this left Maake and his mom destitute. Maake had a hatred for his father after that. After this, Maake seemed to trust Bihlefeld a little bit more, and even offered to show them where he hid his pistol, which he used for the murders, and surprisingly, even in the dark, he knew where to go. Even though he was shackled and cuffed, he moved quickly and arrived at the hiding spot, clearly with every intention to shoot and kill Bihlefeld. Luckily, he knocked him over and grabbed the pistol from him and loaded him back into the car. Digging into Maake's past, they discovered that he was extremely trustworthy, and one of Maake's employers, one of Maake's brothers, was a police sergeant who even tried to bribe the captain. Cedric's wife had also told him that earlier on in their marriage that she was unfaithful to Maake. Cedric found out, and when she was encountering these men, she went to Wemapan to search the room that him and his wife had rented. Both the landlord and his wife were shocked that he was the Wemapan murderer. Eventually, Bihlefeld figured out that the Hammer series was also Maake's doing, and he called him a super killer. And Maake's explanations for the tailors was that he said that he always liked to look neat, and that sometimes the woman he raped would tear his clothes. Weirdly enough, his fashion did not come across as him offloading guilt. It was more of like he was boasting about it. He also claimed that a tailor had once messed up his shirt, so he hated tailors and he started killing them after that. Eventually, Bihlefeld was able to piece together all 5 MOs, and Maake faced 133 charges in total. This trial started in April of 1998, and it lasted 355 days with all the surviving victims testifying. On the 16th of March 2000, Cedric Maake was found guilty of 27 counts of murder, 26 counts of attempted murder, 41 counts of robbery with aggravated circumstances, 1 count of attempted robbery, 14 counts of rape, 1 count of assault with grievous bodily harm, 3 counts of illegal possession of a firearm, and 1 count of illegal possession of ammunition. And he was sentenced to 1,835 years and 3 months. The 3 months was for the bullet in his pocket. It is safe to say that this man is not coming out anytime soon. Thank you guys so much today for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed. And I think this case was particularly interesting because we always picture serial killers in one way, and we always think that they have a certain MO, and with him, he didn't. He just killed because, he could kill. So yeah, thank you so much guys. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment down below, share this video, and I'll see you guys on our next upload.
My guy pretty like a girl, and he got 5 stories to tell. See both sides like Chanel, see on both sides like Chanel.